This week on List Rate Rank.
I was like, I want Kermit the Frog's job on the Muppet Show. I want to work with a whole bunch of weirdos and run around like a nut and make cool things.
On List Rate Rank, our hosts research various topics and each bring their own top 5 list to the show. Together they debate, discuss, and deliberate, and with the help of an expert, one definitive and indisputable top 5 list is created.
This is just all about death right here. This is all death.
This is List Rate Rank.
Welcome to List Rate Rank. I am David Fedor, and today we have a special guest host, Anne Marie Sweeney. Welcome to List Rate Rank.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure having you here. Anne Marie, you and I go way back to our improv days in Pittsburgh, PA.
Wow.
Hustlebot OG in the house.
Wow. Right here.
Thank you for filling in for Felicia on this children's book episode of List Rate Rank.
I'm honored to be here.
And one of the things that we're going to benefit with having you here is your experience with books. You read books, right?
Actually, I am illiterate, but I do have children and I show them the pictures.
Nice. So yes, you have 3 children?
Yeah, 3 kids. I have twins that are 6, Finn and Locke, and I have a 2-year-old named Mac.
Awesome. And I have 2 children as well. I have 2 boys.
I was just going to ask you, yeah.
Yeah, my son's Griffin and Selen, they're 5, and my youngest one is just a couple months old. He's like 6 months old. So.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so there's 5 boys between us.
Holy crap. That's a lot.
Yeah. So and which explains why, the past couple of years we haven't performed together in a long time. So it's going to be exciting to go down this children's book rabbit hole with you for the next hour.
Agreed.
So do you guys read a lot of books? Or do the kids read a lot of books to you?
Yeah, they help me out. We actually, I'm sure you do this too, but we try to do a bedtime story at night. And we started this when they were like, not even, they couldn't even, the age when you can't even like look, they can't even see your eyes yet.
Yeah. Like
we would read them then. So yeah, I think now it's like, it helps because it's like part of the routine. So it's like part of the bedtime. So they get a story, but yeah, we read to Finn and Locke, and then whoever puts Mac to bed reads him a story too, like nice. In his own room.
Well, yeah, like when they're little babies, I didn't know this until I had them. There are books specifically for like the little ones that are high contrast, like very big, bold, black and white images that help develop because they could see that easier and stuff like that. And then when Griffin was young, I read to him a lot. And Stellan a little bit now, but mostly Griffin. He's all about his iPad and his videos, man. I feel a little bit guilty with how much I don't read to him anymore.
Oh God,
not that I don't, but
my kids are on the iPad all the time. Let's be honest.
And I'm sure back before books existed and people told stories before bedtime, or like, oh, you're reading books, those newfangled books before bedtime.
Right.
Back in my
it was like
day,
the devil's toy.
Right. Yeah. And now like, we watch videos before bed on my phone or something like that, or, occasionally we'll read books. So that's, in my opinion, the same. So
no, it's the next generation.
Yeah. But the one of the cool things about having kids, and I don't know if this was the same for you, was revisiting some of those classic books that were read to us or that we reread when we were young.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the top 5 lists that we're going to talk about today, the ones at least on my list are they're younger, they skew younger, so okay. It's more like books that are read to kids as opposed to the ones that the kids themselves read. So like we're not talking about young adult stuff or YA books as they are known in the industry,
Yes.
So my top 5 is under the age of 10, under the age of 7, something that the kids would be read to. So
yeah, that's for the most part my list too.
All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and get to our list then. And since you are a guest on the show, I will let you go first. So Anne Marie,
Okay.
please present your top 5.
Okay, starting with number 5, I have the Bible. No, I don't really.
I was going to crack a joke, but I didn't want to insult. That's hilarious.
Yeah, you don't know. I guess, yeah. I mean, I've never been a really religious person, but I could have been saved between the time that we've performed since then.
And that's some pretty heavy nighttime tales to give.
Yeah.
And then they ripped the child in half to prove their allegiance to God. Good night, sweetheart. Bye.
Oh, yeah. Number 5, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White.
Yep.
Okay, number 4, The Snowy Day, Ezra Jack Keats. Number 3, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, need I say, Dr. Seuss. Number 2, Love You Forever, Robert Munch. And number 1, without question, Goodnight Moon, Margaret Wise Brown.
Excellent list.
Okay, well, let's hear yours.
So I had a caveat to mine. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing this fair and I was doing this right. The Charlotte's Web, I almost had in my top 5.
Right?
The reason I didn't was because I wanted my list to be books that we owned here in this house.
Okay.
So I don't have a copy of Charlotte's Web here. Of course, I read it when I was young. And I think that's still a little too old for my kids. So that's why we don't have it here. I was going to say the same thing about like Black Beauty, Black Stallion, even Harry Potter. Those are popular kids books, but those aren't the children's books that that I included on my list. So yeah, I literally went into my kids' playroom and my oldest son's bedroom and went through the shelves and picked the ones. And I have them here. My number 5, Corduroy. So it's Corduroy by Don Freeman. Number 4, The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats.
That was my number 4 too.
I know, right? Number 3, Dr. Seuss's One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish.
I'm going to fight you on that one. Oh.
Number 2, The Karate Kid.
Oh.
This is my wild card right there.
Okay.
And my number 1, The Little Engine That Could.
Okay. All right.
Right. So
you're lucky that is automatically going to the list.
Oh, you're not a fan of The Little Engine That Could?
But I mean, I'm just saying.
All right, we'll get to it. So our number 1s will automatically go to the next round and presented to our guest expert to rank. So that means your Goodnight Moon goes to the joint list. My Little Engine That Could goes to the joint list. If anything on our list matches, that automatically goes to the next round. So the Snowy Day makes it
like mine.
List. So that means we have 2 spots left in our joint top 5 to be presented and ranked.
Oh, no, right, because it's both of our top ones.
Yeah. So
math is hard.
Yeah, and this this debating is going to get a little hard because how could you hate The Little Engine That Could? I
don't think I said hate. I did not say hate.
Okay, well, your face definitely said hate, Anne Marie.
I think my face said vomit, but it didn't say hate.
So The Little Engine That Could, written by Waddy Piper, which is actually
a real name?
It's a pen name. Good pickup.
Waddy?
Pen name Waddy, W-A-T-T-Y. But in reality, it was the publisher. He wrote it himself. It's Arnold Munk, M-U-N-K. So that's not too better than Waddy, to be honest. But The Little Engine That Could was actually a folktale that appeared in different places around the world, in different cultures, in different countries and stuff, dating back to the early 1900s. It wasn't until 1930 that this version of the story was published in America and became like the standard Little Engine That Could. So it's a tale of a long train that needs to be rescued and pulled over a high mountain after its engine breaks. All these large, strong engines declined to help for a variety of reasons. So it was up to this little engine, this little blue engine that said, yes, I'll do it. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. This is a story of optimism. This is a story of hard work. This is a story of determination. And that is why this positive book, this positive work ethic book is my number one.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that about the folklore. Like
I know, me too. I discovered that when I was doing my research. So, and that's
cool.
the beauty of the show. Every time, there's always something every week that you look into and you learn something new. So tell me about Goodnight Moon, your number one.
Yes. Well, can I just say one thing about your number one? Not that we need to spend much time on it, but full disclosure, I just have a problem with trains that have faces.
Okay. So it's not necessarily the positive message that helps youth overcome obstacles.
Yes.
You are pro achievement. You are anti anthropomorphic trains.
Yes, because the book that you have, do they have faces?
Oh yeah.
And are they creepy? There's a clown too? Now this looks like some original. When was this made? Like originally made?
Well, this is the 1930s one, but the actual book was printed much later, I'm sure. I bought this. This is not my original. I got this at Goodwill. I buy a lot of kids' books from Goodwill because
that's smart,
they're quarter and they get beat up. And I love when they come with inscriptions.
Oh, Uncle Woody!
Yeah. So it says.
What's the message?
So here's the message. It says, "Quote: I think I can. I think I can."
Oh.
And then it says, "You can do anything you put your mind to, little friend. Love Uncle Woody."
Uncle Woody. What's the date? Is there a date?
1/28/13.
Recent.
So yeah. So I don't know who this was to, but Uncle Woody, sorry, pal, your book got donated to Goodwill. This was not.
Do you think that kid like immediately was like, "Mom, take me to Goodwill. I'm going to donate this."
Probably.
Oh.
So I'll probably add an inscription. I'm going to add an inscription right now.
That's nice to read to your kids.
No, it's to list, rate, rank.
Oh.
So dear list, rate, rank. I love this book.
Are you pandering right now?
I think you will too. I am.
I'm not going to write in any of these. This is a library book. I can't write in this book.
Even if Anne Marie hates your face. So there we go. We added an inscription. So
you signed it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your number one then.
Okay. Well, you're familiar. I
Goodnight
assume,
Moon.
right?
Yes.
Of course. Okay. Okay. There's two reasons why I think this is number one. And I know you're going to relate to this. One of the things I really appreciate about this is that the book starts off with a kid bunny getting settled down for bed. And he's talking about the room. They're talking about the room. And the glorious thing is that slowly things are slowing down. Lights are turning off. The old lady's saying hush. And by the end of the book, the old lady's gone, the lights are off, and the kid's asleep, which is what you want.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, thank you. Which is what you want when you're reading a book, I feel like right before bedtime at least. Because it's like, child, look at this and learn. This is what I need you to do now. So I think that's what a great children's book does, is basically tell your child what to do.
And it's a good one to read in hushed tones and very calm. And it lends itself to ASMR. Is that what it's called?
Yes, I love ASMR. Yes.
Yeah. So
definitely. Okay. And then the other, and I'll say also, and you're probably familiar with this too, there's just a lot of, what do you call it, knockoffs of this book. Have you seen different versions of this?
No.
I looked on Wikipedia for some of them. So we have a version called Goodnight Goon, and it's like a Halloween version.
Cool.
But there's also, I haven't read these, but there's a Goodnight Mr. Darcy, Goodnight iPad, Goodnight Dune, based off the book. There's a Goodnight Boobs, which I guess is X-rated. And then there's a Goodnight Keith Moon. Because The Who. So I just feel like a book that generates so many spinoffs also is like deserves to be number one.
Awesome.
Okay. Right.
The other one that will be on our joint list is The Snowy Day. So I picked up this one at Marshall's, The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. And it's a very simple book about a young boy named Peter who excitedly explores his little neighborhood on the first snowfall of the year, of the first snowfall of the season. And I got it because it was an adorable book and it had this little emblem on him, and I was like, oh, it's an award-winning book, of course I'll add that to my collection. I didn't realize until later, one of the reasons that this is a very significant book is because when it was released in 1962, the main character, the little boy, is African American. He's a little black boy, and when this award was won the following year, it was the first publication, the first book that featured an African American child as the main protagonist that won any kind of award. So this was like a big deal. Now the actual author himself is a Jewish man. He's a white Jewish man. So some people are like, well, it doesn't represent culture or something, but it's, in my opinion, for representation at least, it's a great example of some kind of powerful thing back in the 60s. To me, I also think it's just a beautiful book about seeing the wonder of exploring through a child's eyes and the joy of just the simple things. Because even to this day, when I go on walks with my kids, I'll point to trees, I'll point to leaves, I'll point to squirrels, and it's so exciting to see that stuff. So I think this captures that well.
Yeah, I also like when he goes out, there's like the simplicity in the art and the writing. Like you can like hear the stillness. Like you go outside and it's snowy and like no one's there. There's like a stillness to the air. And like you can, when he drags his stick along the snow and he makes his footprints, like you can just hear that, smell it, see it, like the way that he did the art and did the writing.
The art is really cool because there's like different textures and different things, and it's a really nice book. It's a really cool book. So I'm glad we both had it on our list to make it to our expert round. Here's the hard part now, Anne Marie. We have
2 more spots.
We have only 2 more spots, but we have 7 books to choose from.
What?
Yeah, ridiculous, right?
Okay.
So let me make my case for the first one on my list, Corduroy. Okay.
Okay.
So, Corduroy by Don Freeman. The book tells the story of a teddy bear named Corduroy who lives in a department store. All he wants to do is get bought, Anne Marie. All he wants to do is go home with somebody who loves him.
Right.
But here's the catch.
Oof.
He's missing a button on his overalls.
Disgraceful.
So this little girl sees him and his mom's like, he's missing a button. We'll get him maybe next time. And he's heartbroken. He's rejected because he's flawed.
Right.
So he goes on this hunt through the department store looking for his button because he wants to be good enough. He wants to be good enough to be loved.
Oh,
he wants to be good enough to be loved. Personally, I think somebody will love you either way. But it's whether or not you could love yourself too sometimes. There's so many messages in this book, and it's beautiful. Okay. And it makes me tear up when I read it too.
Okay. Here's a question. How do you feel about telling kids that they need to change in order to be loved and picked up by another child?
Well, all right, fine. Here's the spoiler. He doesn't find his button and he still gets bought.
Oh, really? I forgot that part.
And when she takes him home, so the little girl loves him anyway. And when she gets him home, she gets a new button for him and sews the button on. So he gets loved either way, even without his button. And she helps improve him too. So that is the message. So yeah. So there, Anne Marie, take that.
Okay. So Charlotte's Web I loved the movie and I definitely read the book, but I think when I think of it, I think of the original movie. I haven't seen the remake with like Julia Roberts. I would imagine most of our audience would know, but Charlotte's Web is the story of Wilbur, a pig who's the runt of the litter on a farm, who is up to be killed for dinner, basically, by the family farm people, but the daughter Fern begs her father to save Wilbur, to spare his life, and he agrees. And he is basically probably given a few days life, and lives on the farm. But then Charlotte, the spider that lives in the barn, steps in and really extends his life by writing messages on her web about the pig that make the farm and the neighboring people, and I think there's a fair, and he becomes this really big deal and like a special pig and a celebrity, and so his life is extended even more. I like this book because of the female lead. I mean, Wilbur, I suppose, is the lead, but in some way I think Charlotte is the hero.
It's not Wilbur's web, it's Charlotte's web. So
Exactly.
I think you're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, I feel like this is obviously a book about teaching death and transition. I think for me, the sucker punch is there's all this emphasis on saving Wilbur's life, and then what's not realized is that Charlotte is a spider who doesn't have that long of a life, and she is ending the end of her life, but yet no one knows that. And I didn't remember this detail until I was looking up the summary again on Wiki this week, but I guess she gives, as she's dying, she gives her sack of baby eggs to Wilbur, which is terrifying and wonderful. Which I think
and they were delicious.
God, what if Wilbur just ate them and that was the end of the story?
He was like, "Oh, thanks. Hey, where are you going?"
But I feel like that moment, I feel like children's books, obviously, I feel like the ones that we consider the best are ones that make some sort of emotional impact. So I feel like this whole theme of death and transitioning is huge. But yeah, I just feel like it does a really good job of explaining transitions and death and sacrifice. And I feel like the movie itself, the original movie itself, is so iconic too. So
I think that's a lot of people's first exposure, at least in my generation, was the animated movie.
Yeah.
And the book, that was one of those books that they made you read in school.
Right.
And yeah, I agree with you. Charlotte's Web is a classic, and it would have been on my list. My list just skewed a little younger. So I am going to talk next about The Karate Kid.
Yes, please tell me. I'm obviously familiar with the movie, but not the children's book.
So one of my favorite lines of books right now are these books called Pop Classics. They're done by an illustrator named Kim Smith, who takes these stories from 90s pop culture, 80s pop culture, and turns them into books. So here we have Home Alone. We have Buffy the Vampire Slayer. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Back to the Future, which probably would have made my list. I've been watching a lot of Cobra Kai lately, so The Karate Kid has made the list. And to see the adaptation into book form, the artwork is incredibly awesome. The stories are fun because they're stories from my childhood that I could pass along to my kid. Yeah, tell me about Love You Forever. I Love You Forever.
Are you familiar, Dave?
Yes. This is the go ahead, tell me about it. I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with it.
Okay, I know this is controversial, so that's why I put it on my list, because I'm controversial. Okay? So people love it or they think it's creepy as hell. Is this the I'll Like You Forever, or Like You for Always, I Love You Forever, my kid you'll never forget it. Yes, exactly. As long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. I think this is I think this was part of a larger collection in our books that my wife loves this story. Okay, so if Bree was doing the podcast, then she and I would agree wholeheartedly. She's listening right now thinking this is the number one. But tell me about it. Why is this kid playing in a toilet on the cover? All right. So, because that's what kids do, right, Dave? They love making mess. So this story is about the cycle of life, and it starts off with a mother and her newborn child, and the tradition that she starts of rocking him at night to bed, and holding him and singing the song, which I will sing the way that my mother sang and that I now sing to my kids. Ready? I'll love you forever. I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. So it starts off just fine with that. The child gets older, but the tradition continues every night. She goes into his room, picks him up, and sings the song. And the emphasis is that he starts doing crazier and crazier stuff, making messes, becoming a child, a young hooligan, blowing bubbles, you know.
He's got his bubble gum and he's got his hat on backwards, like.
Oh my gosh, yeah, his Walkman. He's dredging mud through the kitchen. So, but the point is that no matter what his behaviors are, how crazy he is, she still loves him unconditionally, right? Okay, so this is, you know, you see where this is going. You get it. He's growing older and older until he leaves the house. This is where there needs to be a suspension of disbelief for some people.
He starts murdering people.
He starts murdering people, and she still loves him. So he leaves the house, and then there is a scene where, so he's an adult, where she gets in her car at night with a ladder and goes across town and goes to his window and still picks him up and rocks him and sings a song. Now, here's the thing. Realistically, she probably would have been arrested or fallen and hurt herself. But I think this is a metaphor that she didn't literally go up to his window and pick him up, because she would have had some herniated disc situation.
Sure.
But that she,
because that's what's wrong with it, is the physical aspect of this. It's not the dependency or the overreaching. It was it was her hip problems probably
completely, and climbing up like the ladder every night.
That's not safe.
That's right. Okay, so here's the sucker punch, and you remember this too. He keeps getting older. He gets a phone call from his mom. She's not doing well. Okay, if you remember. And he then picks her up and rocks her. And he changes the lyric, not as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be, but my mommy you'll be.
Oh, shut up.
At this point, if you're not crying, you are dead inside. Okay. Then this is the
wait, then it keeps going? It keeps going?
It keeps going. Wait, have you read this?
Probably not, no.
Okay.
Like I said, this is one of my lines. I think I probably got an overview of it and was like, yep, I'm gonna avoid this one.
I understand. So you love it or you think it's creepy. Then the son, older, full-grown son, he stands at the top of his own steps, and this is what he says. When the son came home that night, he stood for a long time at the top of the stairs. This is just all about death right here. This is all death.
Yeah,
There's just death everywhere.
I could see the weight on his shoulders.
Yeah. But like when my mom read this to me as a kid, I didn't know what was going on.
That's it? That was the end?
No, that's not the end. But I don't think I realized, P.S., Mama just died.
Right, okay.
Because it's understated.
Yeah.
And that makes a brilliant children's book. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Are you ready for this, Dave?
Ready.
Are you sitting down?
I am.
Actually, you might be able to predict this. What's the last page? You know it.
I'm guessing he's holding his child.
Bam!
Boom!
Bam!
There it is.
Bam! And guess what? He sings her the motherfucking song.
So yeah, all right. That's powerful. That's some powerful stuff.
This is powerful, but a lot of people have problems with it. So that's why I'm putting it on here, because if we're not controversial, we're not doing our job.
Yeah. All right. So all right. Well, Dr. Seuss, this takes me to our last books. Dr. Seuss.
Classic.
We have a Dr. Seuss book. Mine is One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. And you have The Grinch That Stole Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about Dr. Seuss, obviously, he's a well-known, beloved children's book author. I felt So, we have a handful of Dr. Seuss books. You could see the
Mm-hmm.
Goodwill sticker on here. This is another
Oh,
one that I
nice.
paid $0.25 for because Dr. Seuss needs to be in a kid's thing. This easily could have been Cat in the Hat. This easily could have
Yeah.
been, Oh, the Places You'll Go. But
Yeah.
it's this fish one because my family had this when I was a kid. And I remember this one more than those other ones, right?
Yeah.
So this one fish, red fish, two fish, blue fish, whatever the hell. It's, quote, a freewheeling plot about a boy and a girl named J and K. They're amazing creatures and they have friends and pets. Interspersed are some surreal and unrelated skits, such as a man named Ned whose feet stuck out from his bed, a creature who has a bird in his ear, and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a wandering tale of insanity. And on my list, because I felt Dr. Seuss needed to be represented. Not that
Agreed.
I've read this much to my own son.
But there's still time.
Correct. Because, whereas I think a kid could relate to a teddy bear losing a button, I don't think Griffin's going to relate to this Dr. Seuss book until he's done his first hit of acid. And then I'll read the book to him and he'll be like, I get it, Dad. I get it.
Yeah.
Why is Grinch Stole Christmas on your list?
Well, for me, I picked it because it has more of a plot than other Dr. Seuss books. And also because he creates such a instantaneously unlovable character. He's the epitome of, he's the Grinch. It's like the perfect name. Like, did he make up that name? Grinch? Was that a name before or a word before? Like Grinchy?
I don't know. I'll look it up and you could pitch.
So he just makes him instantly unlikable, of course. Like, who hates Christmas? Like, it's a brilliant concept that he's created this character who's so cold-hearted that he actually wants to take Christmas, which is the best day of the year for Christians, and what I also really love about this book is the whole Whoville and Cindy Lou Who, I could do without. It's too much saccharine. Okay, I like the Grinch side of it more and his transformation. But what I love about this is that you get to go along and see every single part of his awful plan, where he dresses up his dog, where he obviously goes to the houses and starts to take the stuff, and you think, okay, he's just gonna take the presents, and then you see every single step where he takes the stockings, he takes the food out of the fridge, he takes the Christmas tree, the decorations, and the gifts, he takes the food that's been left out, he takes the logs out of the chimney. It's insane that he can't stop at just the gifts. So I just love going along on that ride. And then, of course, the whole message about redemption and that these Whovilles can forgive him even though that he's taken everything from them, and that the whole line about that his heart grew what is it? That the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. That always gets me. That transformation, I think, is pretty remarkable. And I also wonder, they invite him obviously to eat, but I wonder if some of that was self-serving to be can you bring the food back, please?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it was. I'm finding a theme in your books are.
Oh, what is it?
Well, not only death but darkness and death.
Yeah.
Charlotte's Web, Love You Forever, even Goodnight
Yeah.
Moon, even the moon goes away.
Right.
Everything disappears. The Grinch is just evil.
Right.
So that's interesting. Might want to look into that.
Yeah, I'll ask my therapist.
In lighter news, it does look like quite possibly the word Grinch originated with this book.
So brilliant.
Yeah, it's on Merriam-Webster.com.
Huh.
It says, did you know? When Theodore Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss, wrote the children's book How the Grinch Stole Christmas in 1957, he probably had no idea that in 20 years, quote, Grinch would enter the general lexicon of English.
That's
like
cool.
Charles Dickens's Ebenezer Scrooge, whose name has become synonymous with miser, The Grinch changes his ways at the story end, but the unreformed character who hated Christmas, who sticks out in our minds. The ill-natured Grinch, with his heart 2 sizes too small, provides us with a lively symbol of someone we love to hate, and his name has thus come to refer to any disgruntled grump who ruins the pleasure of others. So yeah, so you're right. So Grinch, the word, came from this book. That's awesome.
That is cool.
All right, so that is our case for Grinch Who Stole Christmas, The Karate Kid, One Fish, Two Fish, Love You Forever, Corduroy, and Charlotte's Web. Now, the difficult thing is going to decide which 2 of these get to complete our top 5 list to take to our expert.
Can I share my thoughts on which ones I think from your list should be considered?
Okay.
So you have Corduroy, Karate Kid, Seuss. Is that the 3 that are up for grabs?
Yes, because we each had The Snowy Day, so that's taken off. So yeah, Corduroy, this Dr. Seuss, and The Karate Kid.
Okay. Now, but your Karate Kid is number 2, right?
It's my number 2, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of what we have to work with here. I could very, very easily accept the argument that The Karate Kid does not belong on this list. Because it's not an original book. It's not a children's book. It's not even appropriate for children's. Have you seen Cobra Kai? It is so bad.
I haven't seen it. I've heard it's good though.
It's ridiculously good. So the book itself has no business being in our,
it has
our
a very
top 5.
emotional attachment.
And that's why I included it in my top 5, because I wanted to have some representation that not all of these books that we're talking about have to be from the 1960s. They don't all have to be classics like Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
They don't all have to be The Little Engine That Could. There are some modern day books, even if it's a retelling of a story from the 80s, that could be in there. So I will voluntarily remove Karate Kid from conversation.
Okay. I would also do the same with Charlotte's Web, because I feel like I like the idea of the theme being more books that you read to children.
Okay. Yeah, I'll agree. So that leaves us Corduroy, our 2 Dr. Seuss's, and Love You Forever.
I would vote for Corduroy. I feel like that was almost on my list too, even though I have some plot issues, but it's a classic book.
It is good, and I think it nails a good, like a longing to be loved, or longing to be belong, or that sort of heartwarming tale. So okay, and then between your Grinch Who Stole Christmas and Love You Forever, like I'm fine with us picking one from each for us to go here. Love You Forever, as insane as it is, I kind of would love to see what the expert has to say about it. But Grinch, but Grinch is also a classic. So what do you have your heart on?
Between those 2 for mine, I would say Love You Forever.
Okay, I agree. I think that'll make my wife happy. So I'll do that, because she's letting me stay up late and not have to put the kids to bed tonight because of recording this. So
thanks, Brie.
Yeah. So I will say a thanks to her as well. Okay.
So do we have one spot left for Seuss?
That's it. That's all 5.
Wait, what are they? Can you remind me?
Little Engine That Could, Goodnight Moon, The Snowy Day, Love You Forever, and Corduroy.
Okay, yeah.
So we're going to take these 5 to the expert right after the break, so stick around.
Hey everybody, this is Jeff, the host of Stuff I Never Knew Trivia Game Show podcast. Each week, 3 players from around the world call in and battle it out over 3 rounds of trivia. Each week there's a new show. You'll meet new people from around the world. We have over 80 episodes. We're in season 4. That's the Stuff I Never Knew Trivia Game Show podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts. That's StuffINeverKnew.com, StuffINeverKnew.com, that's StuffINeverKnew.com.
All right, welcome back to the show. Libby Ward is an award-winning comedy writer, artist, and games producer. Some of her delightful work can be found on Cartoon Network's Be Cool, Scooby Doo, GSN's Idiot Test, and most recently, the kids' science podcast, Who Smarted. She's most excited about her newly released bilingual children's book, Luchadormice, which focuses on themes of diversity, cooperation, inclusion, and love. And today, she's our children's book guest expert. Libby, welcome to List Rate Rank.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure having you here to shed some light on children's books and also share your story. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer, performer, improviser?
Yeah, the quick young journey was that Kermit the Frog and the Muppets were a big inspiration when I was very young, and I was like, I want Kermit the Frog's job on the Muppet Show. I want to work with a whole bunch of weirdos and run around like a nut and make cool things. And so I went through all of the schooling and exploring and pounding the pavements of Manhattan and Los Angeles and Chicago and trying to figure out where I best fit into that Kermit the Frog job description.
Yeah.
And where I've landed is mostly as a creator of things, because then I get to pool my weirdos together that I've met from various delightful places like Second City and UCB and IO and the Magic Castle and the World of Jazz and all of these other fun places, and be like, let's make a thing, and then try to find someone who will either fund it or distribute it or both, and put those things out into the world.
Awesome. And some of those things are television shows, Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo, that's like right up there ranking with Kermit the Frog as one of the iconic children's things that draw like inspiration. Tell me about that.
Yeah, you gotta solve mysteries with friends in your van. Otherwise, what are you even doing with your life? Yeah, that was a very delightful connection. My co-worker, friends, fellow weirdo John Colton Berry brought me in to write on that. Scooby-Doo's been going on and on for 40 plus years because you really can't beat the perfect formula of, just like the Muppets, the perfect formula of like a cast of diverse friends getting up to fun hijinks together. And so this particular iteration, Be Cool Scooby-Doo, I especially love because they gave Velma and Daphne tennis shoes. We gave Daphne a lot of cool, strange things to do. My favorite episode is Naughty or Ice, where Daphne decides she's going to go on a heist. So they sort of have to solve the heist for Daphne as one of the culprits. There's still an ultimate mask reveal, which I won't give away, but she kind of decides, why not me? So we got to have a little more twisty fun with it in this latest version.
Now, tell me a little bit about what it's like to collaborate with these weirdos, as you're talking about. Anne Marie and myself are improvisers as well in the past. We have since each gone and started families, and as you can imagine, with little ones running around, there's not much time to go and play make-believe on stage, but we get to play make-believe in living rooms and things, and that's so fun. Tell me about the just the awesomeness of the creativity of improv.
Yes, and as you know, it's really fun to take the last thing somebody said, not knowing what thing they're going to say, and absorb that into yourself and go, okay, well then what else is true? Or what if this? And how do we build on that? And why is that interesting to me? And how can I bring my own personality to that? And how can I share what I know about your personality? And how can we make something together that's elevated? And moreover, I mean, certainly in improv, even though it's very quick and in the moment, but in my book and in the animated shows that I love to work on, or any shows, animation's one of my favorite, you get the thumbprint of every single person on it until you get like a turkey. Like I was thinking of like the handprint Thanksgiving turkey, as I was saying it, I was building this image in my mind. I'm like, what do you get when you put a whole bunch of literal thumbprints together? You get a Thanksgiving handprint turkey.
Right. Cool.
Maybe I'm hungry.
Well, I always love collaboration, and that's one of the reasons for this show. I love bringing in new people and talking and meeting and hearing their stories, because like you said, you don't know the directions of where things are going to go. So with your story, it went from writing, performing, into like game show work and this children's book. Tell me about your this game show, this Who's Smarted. And first off, Who's Smarted and Luchadormice, I could already see a pattern of puns with projects that you work on.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of puns, and actually, and Who Smarted was not my pun. It was Atomic Productions, and
But you saw it, and you were like, I need to be a part of this.
Yeah, yes, I was like, a pun, you say? Please sign me up. Yeah, that's a really fun one that I actually just started on, and I'm not sure how quickly my episodes will be out, but I just wrote one on spiders, and I'm putting out one about Bigfoot right now, and they're pretty short little podcasty episodes that explore fun science stuff in a narrative way. Episodes that are already out include pizza and gravity. I know there's a Marie Curie one coming out, and the producers were just endeavoring at Atomic. We're just endeavoring to share a ton of information in a fun and silly way, and just really engage curiosity, engage their own curiosity and my curiosity as a writer and producer, which is part of why, as a Seattleite, I was like, could I do an episode on Bigfoot? Is that science? Kind of. I mean,
did they say yes?
Yeah. It's one that I'm sending their way tonight, actually, for production this next week or so. And in that way, like, I threw in like how to classify and name and publish your species findings. So, I'm not saying Bigfoot's real or not real, but if you're looking at it from a scientific perspective, you have to go out with the other cryptid hunters and find evidence of Bigfoot, and then prove that it's a new species. And
right.
So there's a science element available, even though one cannot say Bigfoot himself. Maybe he's a scientist. Who knows?
We don't know yet.
We don't know. That's the thing about science. Right. There's so much you don't know. You just have to gather all the evidence.
Well, certain things like writing and drawing children's books can be done during these times.
Yes.
Tell me about Luchadormice, your new children's book that came out.
Yes, and as you pointed out, you wore your Lucha Libre shirt in honor of Luchadormice. So in the same way we were talking about sort of finding the seed of something and building upon it in improv, I was on Hollywood Boulevard outside of a store called Iguana Clothing late at night, and in their window they have luchador masks, and there was a little mouse in the window. So my first thought was like, you really need to get out of there. You're going to be in big trouble when somebody finds you, because I have an affinity and an empathy for all the creatures, from spiders to nudibranchs to elephants to apes.
What was the second one you named?
Oh, nudibranchs.
Yep. Okay. Tell me more about that.
I was nudibranchs came out because as I was researching the classification of new species, they're fresh in my mind, because there are many, many new nudibranchs being found all the time. They're little sea creatures that are frequently very small, like the size of your thumb. I might be wrong in saying I believe that they're a type of worm. I'd have to verify that, or you other scientists can verify that. I regularly find them when I'm scuba diving. They're very, very cute little, interesting little critters. And apparently, in part because there are so many, the ocean is so vast and the ocean is so deep. And the more we explore the ocean, the more critters in general we find. But they're so small and unassuming and in my imagination, I presume bookish, that there are lots of opportunities to continue to find new versions of them, and go, oh, this is an adventure-loving nudibranch. This is a poet, and find and classify them and add them to the vast list of species in the world.
Awesome. Well, I just wrote, and I know I misspelled it, but I'm going to look more into it because now I want to learn more about these nudibranchs.
Well, and I hope no one's peeved about my pronunciation, because there's a like little variation all over the world when you talk to different scuba divers and scientists, and I'm just saying it the way I remember it. But again, my research is shoddy.
Let me know if you hear anything about it, and we'll take care of it. List Ray got your back.
Okay.
So you're looking at this Lucha Libre display in a store. There's a mouse in there.
I'm concerned for her safety.
Concerned for safety.
Yeah, and then it occurred to me that she must be a luchadora. Tormenta she's my first luchadora, and I just started thinking more about what if, and what could this be, and how could we build out her world. And I started building out the world of the Luchadormice. And then, to your interest in wrestling, I wasn't particularly a wrestling fan. I wasn't not a wrestling fan, but
more a fan of puns
and adorable creatures, big and small. And but Luchadormice and that world was so delightful to me that I, on a trip to Mexico City, which is one of my favorite places in the world, and everyone should visit there all the time, as soon as there's not a pandemic on. As soon as the pandemic's over, everyone run to Mexico City.
Everybody.
When I was there, I went to the CMLL. It's the WWE of Mexico. It's the giant Lucha Libre organization. I went to like their 80th anniversary event, and it was nuts. I presume as a wrestling fan, you go to live events.
Yes.
It is so athletic and theatrical, and even after just like half an hour, I was like, oh, I get it now. These people are crazy, and it's so fun. And then I delved further into that world as I was illustrating to try to figure out like, oh, what would these different luchadors and luchadoras moves be based on their character, and that kind of thing. And then, of course, once you freeze frame any wrestling move, it kind of looks like it might be from the Kama Sutra. So I had to make
book. You had to walk.
I had to make a fair number of variations to the wrestling moves to make them a little more kid friendly, and then run it by all of my dirty-minded adult friends to make sure there wasn't anything I overlooked before I published it.
That's funny. As a wrestling fan, like you said, one of my bucket list things is to see a Lucha Libre show in Mexico City, is to go there and be part of that. So it is a magical world, and I just want to say I love your illustrations. They are ridiculously awesome, and it's a really great book, and it's also a bilingual book.
Yeah, it's Spanglish. It's because Lucha Libre is a Mexican tradition, of course, and my family is from Tucson, Arizona. I had started, before I even made the book, I had started developing it as a children's animated series. And I wrote the theme song, and the theme song just sort of automatically poured out of me in this Susie Spanglish. And it made so much sense to me because nearly everyone I know is bilingual, even if it's just throwing in a word here and there. And whether your first language is Spanish or your first language is English, it's kind of the same thing across most of North America. I mean, certainly all of the US and Mexico, and then down into Central and South America even. They're just both so widely spoken that they kind of get combined frequently. So when I took the theme song and converted it into just a little more book friendly prose, which was to take out the chorus and maybe add one or two clarifying stanzas about the world that kind of gives it a nice beginning, middle, and end. I also went through and kind of made sure that the words that people wouldn't know in whichever language was their second language, whether it was Spanish or English, could still be easily picked up in context and through the illustrations, in the same way that when you read Dr. Seuss or J.K. Rowling or C.S. Lewis, and they throw out gibberish words, they've made like muggles or the Sneetches, what that means because it works in the context of the book. And then because this is not literally gibberish. It might be gibberish to you if you don't speak the
Right.
language yet. You also have the opportunity to be like, ooh, what is that? Or I've just, I've learned a new word, or let me look it up, or maybe I want to study Spanish or English. And if you're especially young, and this was a beautiful byproduct I learned after writing it and then researching more, if you've just heard a language more as a kid, then when you get to your high school class or your ESL class, then it comes to you more quickly because you already have those sounds in your head. Like, a lot of hard consonants in English, but in Spanish, a lot of, rolled R's and NYs and those sorts of things.
Well, that's fascinating, and like I said, it looks awesome, and I love the message. So we did come here to talk about children's books as well. So Anne Marie and I listed our top 5. So
Yes.
Let's get to business. We came here to rank these. So are you ready?
Let's rank them.
Let's do it. All right.
Okay, here are our top 5 children's books. Little Engine That Could, The Snowy Day, Corduroy, Goodnight Moon, Love You Forever.
And what an excellent top 5 you two chose together.
Well, thank you.
Well, are you ready for my number 5?
I'm ready.
My number 5 is Goodnight Moon.
Okay. Tell me why. Tell me a little bit about why, or what you like about the Goodnight Moon book.
I think the Goodnight Moon is really beautifully illustrated, and it's soothing, and I feel like I don't know the author's intention well enough to say for sure, but I feel like it's parental benefit is knocking your kids out and like sending them quietly to bed, not starting a political conversation as some of my favorite kids books do, or creating more energy. So I feel like it's really beneficial for that, but for that reason it does not excite me as much as some of the others that you listed.
Okay, how about number 4?
Number 4, I'm going to go with Love You Forever.
Okay.
Which similarly is a very beautiful story. It's sort of that, and in the vein of like Love You to the Moon and Back. I'm not sure that that's necessarily the name of the story, but that's the theme of it, or The Giving Tree even. It's kind of in that vein, and it is also beautifully illustrated, as I recall, and very sweet and very sentimental. And I think it's really just the simplicity of it that I both enjoy but don't find as exciting as the remaining 3 in the ranking.
All right, well, let's move on to number 3 then.
I'm gonna go with The Little Engine That Could for number 3, which is a most excellent classic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna maybe be a little bit picky here in saying that one of the reasons why I don't list it higher is because, as I recall, and it's been a long time since I've read that specific book, even though I read children's books frequently, I'm always looking for new ones, is that I appreciate that his message is perseverance and he gets cheered on and he's going to do a great job. But one thing that I, in a very persnickety way, feel is missing from this book is I don't recall him actually changing anything or making any particular creative decisions like, oh, well, this hill is too slippery. Maybe I need to put gravel down, or this, maybe this would help me achieve my goal, instead of just pushing. And
the character arc of the main protagonist was not complex enough for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You do have high standards on you.
I have very high standards. And we're trying to rank our top.
That is true. We're
5.
coming down to the pickiness.
We're not talking about the hundreds of extraordinary books out there. We're talking about the top 5.
It's all on the line.
Yeah, I'm very much for persevering toward a goal, but I feel like a little lesson of working smarter and hard,
Cool.
would put it over the hill for me, so to speak.
I like what you did there. All right, now we have down to the Snowy Day and Corduroy as our last two remaining.
Okay, I'm going to go with Snowy Day at number 2. I really like the style of those illustrations. They're, sort of more of a cutout than some of the other ones that we've looked at. Also, as we discussed, I'm a big fan of diversity, and particularly diversity that doesn't need to be called out as diversity, and of exploration, and of like going on personal journeys to discover fun, interesting things and learn from those journeys.
Cool. And then Corduroy makes our number 1.
And Corduroy, I just love a misfit, and
his flawed main character. He's got his button missing and everything.
Yeah, but moreover, finding love and finding your tribe, and I guess he does get a button at the end, which, in my opinion, he may or may not actually need. Although I guess it helps keep his overalls up. That
is what she says to him at the end. She says, "This is going to help you with to be more comfortable. You'll be more comfortable with your shoulder strap fastened." And then they hug each other at the end, and he's like, "Oh, this must be what being a friend is like." And she's like, "Yeah, we're friends."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a nice acceptance and love book.
Yeah, it's also a little bit, I feel like, of adventure and discovery, right? Because he's sort of going on a journey and trying to sort it out, and then he meets a friend who helps sort it out with him, which is nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your expertise in listing. Now, our 5 has been spread up between Anne Marie and myself, and the way you pick them, I won this episode with a score of 12-7. So I guess I thank you a little bit more than Anne Marie thanks.
Well, congratulations, and I'm sorry, Anne Marie.
All right, so before we get to your top 5 list,
okay,
I have a new segment, and I'd like to debut it here. With your improv and game show background, I thought you'd be the perfect first guest to try this out. Are you game for a new segment, a new episode?
Of course I am. Let's do it.
So we're challenging you to a list, rate, rank Fast 5.
Okay.
So a list, rate, rank Fast 5 is a surprise ranking round that we ask of our guest with no prior notice and no time for research. This is high stakes listing, high pressure rating, and high speed ranking. Libby, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Dormice are nocturnal rodents that sleep a lot.
Yes.
Their name comes from the French word dormir, which means to sleep.
Yeah.
For this list, rate, rank Fast 5, please tell me the top 5 worst places to fall asleep. Go.
The back of a moving pickup truck, the top of a very cold mountain, the ocean, the gutter outside your local bar, and your weird relative's house who you suspect might be a serial killer.
Thank you.
Yay! These are 5 things.
So now that you're warmed up in listing things,
yeah, now I'm so amped.
tell me your top 5 children's books.
Okay, in order, from 5 to 1.
Yes, please.
Okay, ready? Number 5. Because a Little Bug Went Ka-Choo, which is written by Rosetta Stone and illustrated by Michael Firth. Are you familiar with this one?
I'm not.
This one is, so I have a few books, and another, I'm going to say the honorable mention that's in the same category of books, 2 honorable mentions actually. Fortunately, by Remy Charlotte, and The Golly Sisters Go West by Betsy Byers and illustrated by Sue Truesdell.
Okay.
Are the honorable mentions in the same vein as Because a Little Bug Went Ka-Choo. And they're sort of because this, then this. And so, for instance, it starts with, "You may not believe it, but here's how it happened. One fine summer morning, a little bug sneezed. Because of that sneeze, a little seed dropped. Because that seed dropped, a worm got hit. Because he got hit, that worm got mad. And then it carries on escalating to grand citywide cacophony of all because a little bug went ka-choo.
That's awesome.
And it's just very fun and silly, and definitely probably not the book to lull your children to sleep. It's good for fun, silly time, and I enjoy the illustrations. And the only reason that I ranked it 5 below some of my other favorites is that there's a little bit of a sometimes rhyme scheme, sometimes not rhyme scheme. And as a writer and editor, I sort of want to have a chat with Miss Rosetta Stone and tell her how excellent her work is and how we might make it even better.
Awesome. Now that's a Dr. Seuss logo on that book. Is that part of the Dr. Seuss family?
It's an I Can Read beginner book.
Okay.
So there are a number of book stamps of various approval, and I suspect it has more to do with who published them than necessarily who was publicizing them. But the I Can Read books are a level of book that I think Luchadormice falls into, in sort of a, if you've just learned to read or you're sounding out words, then you can probably figure it out, because they're sort of shorter, simpler sentences, and they might have some long, silly, multisyllabic words in there, but it's in that the learning phase. Or they're the sorts of books that you sneakily memorize as a kid without actually knowing how to read them, and then you think you know how to read them, and someone hands you a different book, and you're like, "Oh, I thought I was all good."
Yeah.
Are you ready for 4?
Yes, please.
My number 4 is Trucas, which is by Juan Gerovias, and this one I picked up in Mexico City on my last trip. And it has no prose at all. And it is just gorgeously illustrated in this watercolor style. It's about this, I think there's a better translation for Trucas, but it's about this little gnome guy. And it's very fourth wall. It's basically him. There's sort of some overlord that he's trying to please. Overlord makes it sound weird, but maybe it's a parent, but you only see the giant hand, so it's hard to know exactly. But he basically interacts with the pages themselves and the artwork, sort of like that old Daffy Duck cartoon where he gets in like a fight with the animator.
Okay.
It's this little guy is like kind of getting in a little bit of a kerfuffle with the illustrator and with the pages itself. The pages of the book itself. Yeah. And it's just so fun and weird and unexpected. And even though and it's only like, I don't know, 12 pages. And even though I've flipped through it, who knows how many times. I mean, when I picked it up in the bookstore in Mexico City, I was just drawn to the cover art. And then I was like, well, obviously this book is coming home with me. And yeah, every time I pick it up, I'm excited by it. And, you know, it's a 3-minute read. It's just a fun, like, oh, I need a break from fretting about the election, or I need a break from writing about Bigfoot, which, you know, is fun but takes more brain power. Sure. And it's like a perfect kids book and a perfect coffee table book combined.
Yeah, very cool. I love that.
So that's my 4. Number 3, which I couldn't find on my shelf to show you the cover, but I'm sure you know it, is Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches. Oh, yeah. And as I was mentioning about political messages, and you mentioned The Grinch and One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, you really can't beat Dr. Seuss for fun readability, for weird illustrations that are just both familiar and surprising at the same time. But The Sneetches particularly now is sticking in my mind as the Dr. Seuss book that I wanted to mention, because someone, maybe like 6 months ago, someone had put up a post saying, someone who leans more right, more red, more conservative, who was trying to get more cooperation and understanding with those of us who lean more left, blue, liberal, and said, for me to understand your point of view better, what are 2 or 3 of like leftist liberal books that you would recommend? And first I was like, oh wait, that's me. I'm a leftist liberal. I didn't think of myself that way. Or, I rarely like bother to think of the labels, but I was like, I guess he's talking to me in this post. And I couldn't think of any academic books that were more prescient than the Sneetches, which I don't even think of as necessarily leftist or liberal, but just as being very politically important in healing our divides. And I'll read at the very beginning of this one too, for people who might not be familiar with it. Now the star-bellied Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain-bellied Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big, they weren't really so small, you might think such a thing wouldn't matter at all. And then, of course, the book goes on to talk about, here's the next stanza. But because they had stars, all the star-bellied Sneetches would laugh, we're the best kinds of Sneetches on beaches. And so it kind of goes on to be a tale of like bullying someone because they look different or because they are perceived to be different, but they're only perceived to be different by, something that is outward in their person. They're not hanging out, chatting with each other, comparing record collections, deciding that like, I don't want to hang out with you because I don't know, like because you have not enjoyed mountain climbing and I enjoy mountain climbing, so we're not going to go mountain climbing together, but like we could still get along. But just looking at you and saying like, oh, I'm better than you, it's a real jerk move. And so as the book continues, the non-star-bellied Sneetches figure out how to get stars, and then there's this whole fight about whether having stars is better or not better, and who's more important and why, and how do we prove that it's a very politically conscious book. It's kind of about racism, it's kind of about sexism, it's kind of about classism. And so for as fun and silly a read as Dr. Seuss is, it's very deep and really important, I think. So Dr. Seuss, which you really can't go wrong with any Seussy books. My number 2 is Mercer Mayor's There's a Nightmare in My Closet. And I generally love Mercer Mayor, and I'm real crazy about the Little Monster books too. But the reason why I went with this one in particular is because it also is beautifully illustrated and is kind of about fear of the unknown. And once he realizes that the unknown, the nightmare in his closet, is as afraid or more afraid of him than he is of it, they basically come to an understanding and sort of become friends. And spoiler for anybody who hasn't read it, they end up snuggling in bed together. And I won't spoil the very last page, which is my favorite, the denouement. If you haven't read it, you'll have to read it to get the denouement. But it's also, besides being really good about overcoming fear in general, and especially if you have kids who you're trying to get to sleep, it's just nice that it's sort of like an embracing of the other and an embracing of fear. And my number 1 is the original Warm Fuzzy Tale.
Ooh, I do not know this one.
Which, as I've just discovered, is I think out of print and hard to purchase inexpensively. And I do own a copy, and I couldn't find it, but I checked it out from the library so that I would have one in my hand available for today. It's by Claude Steiner, and the pictures are by Joanne Dick. And a strange little tidbit, this is also, I don't have any tattoos currently, but I sort of have the idea of having a tattoo in mind, but for the longest time I couldn't decide what that tattoo might be. And I'm 99.9% sure that my tattoo is going to be a warm fuzzy, as drawn by Joanne Dick, which are just sort of cute, happy little tribbles. And my tattoo idea for these actually is when there's not a pandemic on. I have so many plans for 2021 for vaccine, post-vaccine days. But my plan is basically to pay the tattoo artist for an hour or two to do as many warm fuzzy tattoos as he or she could do in that time, and buy warm fuzzy tattoos for all of my friends and family who would also like to have one. And here's why, and here's the story behind them. So the warm fuzzy tale is about this village where everyone is born with a bag of warm fuzzies, and it's unlimited, and they can give them away freely, and it never runs out of warm fuzzies. And when you give warm fuzzies to people, they snuggle up with them, and they're warm, and they make them feel good. And these are beautiful colored pencil illustrations of all these little snuggly warm fuzzies on people's heads and their shoulders. It's like story time for you and me on Zoom. And then one day, and everybody's happy, and everybody has a great time, and everybody's being cool with each other. And then one day, an evil witch comes to town wanting to sell his potions and salves and cure-alls, and nobody needs any cure-alls because everybody feels great. So he spreads this lie that your warm fuzzies are finite, that they'll run out. And so everyone starts hoarding them and only giving them to their closest friends or their favorite family member. And in true jaunty children's book lore, if you don't get enough warm fuzzies, you shrivel up and die.
Ooh.
So a lot of, without spoiling too much, a lot of other sort of possible solutions are sought. Like people start giving away cold pricklies, and people start giving away plastic fuzzies, which are fake, which are your frenemies, etc. And then eventually an outsider comes to town and is running around willy-nilly throwing out warm fuzzies to everyone, and everyone, clutches their pearls and no. And then she proves to them that they never run out, and they run the bad guy out of town, and then everyone gets to have all the warm fuzzies again. So I'm going to get warm fuzzies for all of my friends who give out warm fuzzies, and then we'll all just have it as a warm fuzzy reminder.
That is awesome.
Yay!
That is very cool.
But if you can get, especially if you're in used bookstores or, the Goodwill or whatever, scour the shelves for the warm fuzzy tale, the original warm fuzzy tale. I think there might be newer versions, but this one is harder to find than I would hope.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your top 5. Let our listeners know how they could find out more about your works, and then also how they could get their copy of Luchadormice in their hands.
Yes, you can pick up Luchadormice from Amazon. You can pick it up from the luchadormice.com website if you would like me to send it to you personally with my signature and maybe a little mouse in there for you. If you go to luchadormice.com/neighbors for listeners of this show, then I will throw in the shipping and tax for you for free. So it'll be the same, actually, I guess a little less expensive than Prime, because you won't have to pay the tax. I'll pay your tax. I'll pay the government. And then you can find more from me personally at Sneaky Varmint everywhere on the internet. If you search for Sneaky Varmint, and don't forget the N, VARMINT, then you'll find my personal website, Instagram, Twitter, all the silly fun things.
Libby, thank you again for your time, for joining us today. It was a wonderful to hear your opinions about our books, and we had a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you so much. This was fabulous.
Yes, thank you. What an excellent time. Have a good night.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Please rate and subscribe to List Rate Rank on Apple, Google, Spotify, or YouTube, and find our bonus content on listraterank.com. Follow at List Rate Rank on Twitter and Instagram, like List Rate Rank on Facebook, and join our Facebook group to get in on the fun. Thank you for listening to List Rate Rank.
And many more.
All right. Well, I'm going to go because...
I know, it's late. Well, tell Bree I said hi.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I might even put that at the end of the episode.
Oh, yeah, do that.